Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined by Bryan Leonard. We're going to talk about the Pythagorean Theorem. Wow, it only took me 42 takes to get that out, and that'll be the last time I'll say it because I'm going to kick it to Bryan. You talk about this all the time in all of your season win totals. I think we owe the public one video explaining what this is. Break it down, buddy.
Why is it you could say Pythagorean, you can't say coupon? Yeah, we talked about this before, and I talked about the quickest way to look at it is if you score 10 runs more than the opposition at the end of the year, you should have one more win than you normally would. It breaks down something similar, but that's just a shortcut. That's a little bit different.
Is that for dummies? Use that
yeah,
version?
Yeah, that's what I use.
That's the one I'm going to be using.
Well, basically, it's going to be runs scored squared divided by runs scored squared plus runs against squared. That'll give you a decimal number. That's your winning percentage. You multiply that by how many games you're going to play, 162, and that tells you how many games that team should have won based on how many runs scored and how many runs against. And we talked about in an earlier video, St. Louis last year was 7 more than they should have been, and that's how you can take it a little bit of advantage. And I've seen many, and I'm not the greatest math guy in the world, obviously, but I've seen a lot of guys that pick baseball for a living, you know, on the talking heads, and they'll say, well, last year they won 87 games, and now they brought this guy in or whatever, and they should be better. Well, number one, you need to know the value of the player that they're bringing in, the player that they've lost, but you just can't use the blind, they won this many games last year. If you do that with St. Louis, all of them are going to love St. Louis over because you don't have to win as many games. The Angels, you don't have to win as many games. So this is a way to find out, level the playing field, let you know exactly how it is. And unlike football, where you're only playing 16 games, this is spread out over 162 games. This has, to me, it has more meaning because you get one football game when the team wins 50-0, and that's going to throw it off for the entire season. Mm-hmm. But basically what we're taking a look at when we do that, it's what we use for our basis on what we're going to do our season wins. And there's a couple books that I brought along that we're going to talk about, and they're excellent books. A lot of people ask me, you know, where to take a look at some of these things. One of them is a friend of ours, Joe Pita, Trading Bases. We had dinner with Joe a couple of years ago.
And Joe, if you're watching this video, we need to get you in here to do one video with us. Can talk about your book and some of the theories that you have, because he is a great baseball mind.
I believe he's out of San Francisco, a friend of Gil Alexander's, I believe. But Joe Pita wrote this book, and he's more into the stock market. That's most of his history. But he also is a baseball bettor. And this book here, he talks a lot of it or more on the level of if you're a stockbroker and all of that. And that's how he approaches it. But he does a great job. And one of the things he talks about that I've never heard before, but he talks about it, and he calls it cluster luck. And it has nothing to do with the website.
I usually have something else that's
well, I was going to say, it has nothing to do with the similarity of the words of a website we used to work for. But basically, he takes it one step.
I didn't say that if you're suing anybody.
He takes that one step further, and he gives a look on teams when they hit with the bases empty as opposed to men on base. A lot of times they don't hit very well with men on base, and it's a whole thing. So it levels it out a little bit. Sometimes you'll see a game where you get 14 hits and no runs. How did that happen? Then other times you see a game where you got 3 hits and score 3 runs. And that's what the cluster luck is. It's the timing of the hits. He does an excellent job on that. The other one, Baseball Betting for Profit from Eric Strasser. He goes by Palm Tree. He lives here in Las Vegas. I've had a chance to meet him a couple times. This is actually all about baseball betting. And he shows how he goes about breaking down and making a line on each and every game, what he feels is important, or umpires is important, what's the value of home field. And he also talks about with season wins, the Pythagorean Theorem on how he starts that, and that's a basis, and you go from that. But 2 excellent books when it comes to baseball betting and baseball handicapping, especially if you're looking for futures that we're talking about.
Great stuff. I'm going to ask you one question regarding the theorem. There's a team that comes, 2 teams that come to mind. When you have a season like a few years ago with the Baltimore Orioles, where they had all of those one-run games, you know, how does that formula translate to what it should be when, because Baltimore, as you said, every one-run game, they were on the right side of that one year. And then we saw a drop-off the next year. Did this theorem correctly address that?
The theorem basically puts you at the place where you want to be, and then you make your adjustments from that. It's like you talked about Baltimore, where they won all the one-run games. Well, they had a pretty good bullpen, but they didn't have a great bullpen. If you have a better bullpen, you may win a couple more. But bullpens, anybody who handicaps will tell you, unless you have an elite bullpen like the Braves have had or the Royals have, every year it's going to be a little bit different. One year they're great, the next year they're not. Believe me, I'm from Cleveland. We had that bouncing around every year. One year great, one year not. So you just go off. A lot of people will just use the straight bullpen, the average bullpen for the season. Now, you will make adjustments with the ultimate bullpens, which was Atlanta and Kansas City, but everybody else, you just grade them all at the same. So then you would obviously downgrade Baltimore.
The last team that I would throw out there is, for an in-season when you're looking at stuff, the San Diego Padres last year. If you remember, the beginning of the season, first 6 weeks, they couldn't score any runs at all. I mean, it was a point that they were a laughing stock on Twitter. People were just making fun of them. Then they had that stretch after maybe the All-Star break or right before. They went on a run where all of a sudden they were scoring 6, 7, 8 runs a game, and it flipped. They went from a pitching team that was involved in 2-1 games all the time to 8-7, 8-6. How do you adjust for such disparity from one portion of the season to the other?
Well, it's a sample size issue. At the end of the year, it all averages out. What do you have to start off? Obviously, you start off the year expecting them to hit something similar to what they did the year before, and then you make the adjustments as it goes. You're going to get teams that get on hot streaks, get on cold streaks, and obviously if you're playing in San Diego, it's not a high-velocity offense that's going to score a lot of runs. And, we've talked about 5, at least I've talked about 5 seasonal win numbers here. If you're looking for more and you want to see how your team has done, there's an excellent spot. Bangthebook.com has got a spot on there. Adam Burke, a friend of mine, he's an excellent writer. A lot of information on that site. He handicapped every single team in Major League Baseball. I agreed with him on some of them. I did not agree on others, but he's got a lot of great information. He talks about the Pythagorean runs scored, runs against type of thing. So you can take a look at that and listen. It just gives you more information. If you're looking to play the Angels, the Indians, whatever, and I didn't discuss that, gives you something to go with.
All right, great stuff, Brian. All right, that's it for the Pythagorean Theorem.
Ooh, almost.
Almost, all right. He's Bryan Leonard. I'm Marco D'Angelo. I hope you enjoyed this video and find it helpful. We'll be back with more informational videos here at wagertalk.com.